Hey there, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner, your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
We're a minimalist couple driven by intentional living and adventure.
Burned out from the 24/7 grind of running our business, we traded the hustle and the bustle for something more meaningful.
We parted ways with most of our belongings and moved to the coast.
Listen along as we chat about life's challenges, share inspiring stories of those who have taken big leaps to live a life outside of the norm,
and help you live with more intention and less physical and mental clutter.
Each episode is a step toward doing and being just a little bit better for ourselves and the world around us.
Life's an adventure after all. Join us for the ride.
It's the Arner Adventures podcast.
Hello everyone, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jerry.
And we are back for episode 159 of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. 159. Wow. Hey, it's been another year.
Yes, it has. The thing that Jerry just finds amazing is that every single week the number goes up one.
Right. Thank goodness it stays that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm just going to say it as we are moving into 2025. It is the only thing in my life that I have been this consistent with.
That might be for me too. Yeah, but
it's sort of crazy.
It is.
Well, you know what? This is the second week of January when this drops.
Uh-huh.
And last week we were talking about our word of the year. And one of the things that we were talking about was handling decisions differently. And one of the things that Jerry and I both have struggled with in the past is decision fatigue. And we're going to kind of go through that and talk about ways that we have worked towards overcoming decision fatigue and regain mental clarity.
Yeah, you might not know you're struggling with overcoming decision fatigue because you might not know what it is.
Yeah. Once we explain to you what decision fatigue is, you're probably going to be like, yeah, I've definitely been there. So for me, it is definitely something that I deal with when I am really burned out or on the verge of being burned out. But we're going to go through some of the steps that you may relate to and decide that, yeah, that is something. And you should keep listening to figure out how to work through it.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the stuff piling up in your life? We've got something just for you. It's the Arner Adventures Declutter 365.
Declutter 365 is our easy-to-follow guide designed to help you clear out the clutter from every corner of your life. Whether it's the pile of stuff in your home, the endless digital files on your devices, or even the mental load that keeps you up at night, we've got you covered.
Every day, you tackle a simple task that helps you chip away at the clutter. And the best part? You can start anytime. There's no need to wait for the new year or a Monday. You can dive in whenever you're ready.
Over the span of a year, we'll tackle physical, mental, and digital clutter. Imagine having a more organized home, a cleaner inbox, and a calmer mind, all without feeling overwhelmed. It's all about taking small, manageable steps that add to big changes.
Join us on this journey to a simpler, more mindful life. Head over to arneradventures.com/shop.
Let's make space for what truly matters. And now, let's get back to the show.
Decision fatigue happens when we're overwhelmed by all the choices we face. This can lead to poor decision making or mental burnout.
We often make impulsive decisions because decision making is just too difficult, especially with those who might be suffering from ADHD like me. It's just something that seems too difficult to do.
And by the end of the day, your brain is too fried to decide what to have for dinner. Or worse, you make a bad decision because your brain is overloaded and you don't think there's enough space for decision making.
Right. That's what it feels like, is that there's not enough space in your brain to make a decision.
Yeah.
I know that I can often be saying, and Jerry's going to relate to this, just make the decision. I don't want to make any decisions. And if you're feeling like that, you are more than likely experiencing decision fatigue.
You know, we're not medical professionals, but we are sharing from our own personal experiences.
What is decision fatigue?
Well, Shannon, so glad you asked. Decision fatigue occurs because our brains have a limited amount of energy for decision making. Just like any muscles, the more we use it, the more it gets tired and needs time to relax.
It's a real phenomenon where more decisions we make throughout the day, the harder it gets to make good choices.
Yeah, think of it like your phone battery running low. You start out the day with 100% battery, but after a lot of use, and you never know what's going to come up where you have to use it, you'll be struggling to stay focused and make good calls by the end of the day.
Recognizing decision fatigue is the first step in combating it. If you don't realize it's happening, like Jerry said, it can spiral and start affecting your personal and professional life. Similar to burnout, we often don't know that we're there until we're suffering from it.
That's right. But don't worry, there is hope. We will share with you how to overcome the decision fatigue, and at least, when we recognize it.
Right. So what is the impact of decision fatigue? The effects of decision fatigue can be more subtle than we realize. And then they start showing up in all of these ways of how we make decisions and how we live our lives.
Yeah, you're more likely to procrastinate or be impulsive with your choices, or just even avoid decisions altogether. Yeah.
For example, maybe you've had days where, like we talked about, you just can't decide on a simple task, like answering emails, so you push it off, and it creates a bigger stress pile later on.
Yeah, that's right. It's not just about the choices themselves. Decision fatigue affects your emotions too. You might feel more frustrated, stressed, overwhelmed when you're faced with too many decisions.
The emotional weight from that can often create this cycle where you start to burn out, which can affect, of course, relationships, productivity, and even your health, your physical and mental health.
Oh, yeah. So let's get into some signs you're experiencing decision fatigue. The first one is indecisiveness. You find yourself stuck in indecision, unable to pick a restaurant for dinner or plan your week because there are just too many options. When decision fatigue hits, even choosing the smallest things feels overwhelming.
Yeah. The second thing is mental fog. So I think a lot of people can relate to this. You sort of have brain fog, you're mentally exhausted. You really feel like the thoughts in your head are cloudy. It's like you can't think clearly. Your brain is overloaded. You can't process another task.
No, procrastination. You're going to put things off because the mental energy required to make a decision seems impossible. Boy, I know that all too well. This usually leads to a pileup of tasks that you feel you can't even face.
And then it just gets worse and worse.
It gets worse.
The next one is emotional exhaustion. You feel stressed, anxious, irritable, your patience is thin. Even small issues start feeling like big problems because you're just too drained to deal with them.
Making impulsive decisions. You're more likely to make snap decisions without thinking things through. This can lead to mistakes or choices you end up regretting.
Yeah. So if you've heard that and you're like, OMG, I have decision fatigue.
Yeah.
Let's talk. So now we're going to go through overcoming decision fatigue. And if you listen to this podcast, we make our mental health a priority. We know that brain fog, it feels like our brains are not working correctly. It's scary, but it's a sign of some sort of fatigue or overwhelm most of the time. So we're going to share what we've done to help ourselves overcome decision fatigue in our own lives so that hopefully it helps you.
Yeah. So the first thing, and something we've done and we've done over time, is to simplify your life. The good news is there are plenty of ways to manage decision fatigue and regain your control. The first thing you can do is just simplify your life, simplify things. The fewer decisions you have to make, the less overwhelmed you'll feel. These can be having your clothes laid out for the following day. I like to do that. Blocking off your calendar for specific tasks and meal planning. And control the things you can control.
I feel like that is something we say a lot.
Yeah.
And when you break things down to the basics, it really is about controlling the things you can control.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of some routines, like Jerry mentioned, routines can be a lifesaver. By making decisions in advance and just having routines can reduce the number of decisions you need to make each day. So it frees up your brain power for the bigger, more important decisions. I visualize my brain as sort of like a memory on your computer or your phone. I'm like, the amount of memory storage I have is sometimes taken up and there's not room for anything else.
Right.
There's not room to think about anything else. There's not room to make another decision. So if I can pre-plan and have routines that just run almost automatically the way that I'm not thinking about, it's almost hypnotic that is less brain power that I have to use. So
Uh-huh.
routines and rituals are really important.
Prioritize big decisions. Not all decisions are created equal, so you got to figure out which ones are more important and prioritize. If you can, focus on the most important decisions first when your brain has the most energy. For example, plan out your work tasks or set long-term goals earlier in the day when you're still sharp. Yeah, that's it for me. First thing in the day is kind of coming up with some decisions.
I agree. And I think as a
Mhm.
couple, sometimes the time that we come together and are talking is at the end of the day and we're both exhausted.
Yeah.
And when we're physically and mentally exhausted, it's not the best time to make big decisions.
Mm-mm.
So we have learned that, and we've talked on here before about how Sundays are our financial meeting day. We have found that those Sundays, the first half of the day, are usually the best time to make those big decisions
Yeah.
and to talk about those big decisions.
That's right.
We've had our coffee.
Uh-huh.
We're sharp.
Yeah.
We're not exhausted yet.
Right.
Not as much has happened to sort of take up that brain power.
Uh-huh.
So if you can do that either early in the day or like set aside a time each week that you're going to prioritize those big decisions, that's a great idea.
Uh-huh.
So the next thing, and I love this so much, is to delegate and automate. So if you can outsource tasks, do it. Now, I'm not talking about just work. If you're at work and you can outsource different tasks to an intern, a coworker, somebody who's really good at something and doesn't mind doing it, and it's just one of those smaller decisions, just delegate it. If it's in your household, there are some things you can delegate. Like for me, on those days, I can't even think about dinner. I say to Jared, just please make the decision for dinner. Please
Yeah.
just make that decision. Or I just recently said we were going to have a fire pit out back. And I was like, can I just know that that's taken care of?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you got it? And you're
Uh-huh.
like, I got
I
it.
got it.
Then I don't have to have it in my brain.
Mhm.
So whether it's asking someone to make a decision for you or automate things like your bill payments or task reminders, it can be putting the reminders on your Google Calendar that says when a bill is due. That way you don't have to go, oh my God, when is the, utility bill due again? You
Yeah.
know it's on your calendar. You don't have to think about it. It
Uh-huh.
reduces that mental load.
Yes. Setting boundaries. Back to setting boundaries.
This comes up in almost every single podcast.
I think it does. It's just one of those key things to like self-help and self-care. So that's the most difficult thing we have to work through is our boundaries. I think for us anyway, we're getting better at setting them and holding them. It's a work in progress, so we understand that. So everybody, I think everybody has to work hard on that. Learning to say no, that's a big part of it. Protect your time by setting limits on the amount of decisions you can handle in one day. If you're feeling drained mentally, step back and focus on what really matters.
Right. The next thing
Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
is to take regular breaks.
Yes.
Taking breaks throughout the day to reset and recharge helps. Even if it's just stepping away for a few minutes, taking a walk. I literally go outside. So if I'm working, I've talked about this before, how much I love the Pomodoro method. It's work 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. It helps to know that I am clearing my brain even for 5 minutes, getting outside, getting some sun, getting some fresh air. It really does help your brain clear.
Yeah.
And it helps you focus during that time that you are focusing. And so whatever way that means for you, whether it's the Pomodoro method or saying, okay, every hour I'm going to take a 10-minute break, whatever it is, just make sure that you take breaks. It really does help.
Oh, yeah. Consider small steps in overcoming decision fatigue. Take a step back and think about how this decision fatigue is showing up in your life. Can you declutter? Remember, clutter isn't just physical, it's mental, digital. This all adds up to overwhelm.
So all the things that we've talked about to help, we hope that it's something that you can use and, work through your own decision fatigue. I think the biggest thing here is just simplifying your life. And that doesn't have to mean selling everything and downsizing the way we did.
Yeah.
But it's similar to what we've talked about before. If you simplify and you have things organized and clean, like to start your day, you can focus more. It's the same thing. It is very hard to make decisions when things are in disarray or in clutter in your physical life, mental life, digital life, whatever it is. So just consider these and just try to figure out, is there a place where you can simplify things, control the things you can control? Maybe it's meal planning for the week, setting those clear boundaries, or creating those routines around your decision-making process.
Start small and see how you feel. What's one thing you can do this week to reduce it in your life? If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from what we talked about, please share it with a friend.
It's a great way of supporting the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review or rating on the platform you are listening to us on.
And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That also supports us. You can always find us, the show notes, and sponsors who support the podcast at arneradventures.com.
And until next time, enjoy the journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye-bye.